Hello and welcome to another episode of Evening Crypto with your boy, your host, The Real Shaw 256. Tonight I want to talk about XRP pumping. I also want to talk about Bitcoin, a follow up on Friday's video. I believe it was the 11th last week. I gave you my three things to look for and gave you sort of a timeline for those things. And so, we actually did hit all of the 3 points that were pretty important heading into the weekend. We actually hit upon all of the 3 points that I gave you again before the weekend. And we are going to give you guys an update on that and see what else we can expect on Bitcoin side. And again, the XRP pump recently has been phenomenal. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the chart, and we'll maybe talk about a few other altcoins. Look at their chart and see what they're doing. Um, and I want to get things kicked off with a little bit about Ethereum, just a tiny bit. And then also Mark Zuckerberg was in the news today with a speech at Georgetown University. So we'll talk about those briefly. I just quickly want to mention a couple of things that I think are noteworthy, and then we'll get into the chart. So we'll do a quick recap of the current market cap. We're currently at 220,000 billion for the entire market cap. A 24-hour volume has been a steady at around 50,000, between 52 and 56,000. Currently sitting at 24 or 52, which again, a lot of that has come back in because of that brief bounce that we've seen since the low down here around 78, 77,000, and we did see sort of a bounce that was to be expected. And then another point I really want to quickly touch upon is how the market cap, and we're actually going to have to zoom in here to really talk about this a brief point that I want to make in the psychological sort of event that the market cap has been around above 200 billion, right? And we got pretty close to testing the 200 billion again. It's a marker that we hit back in May 11th, May 12th, right in between there. And we haven't really come back and retest it yet. I mean, it's a huge psychological barrier there, and should be a huge area of support, which is why I don't think that Bitcoin is going to go much steeper in the sooner in maybe the medium to long time frame. Maybe we do come back and retest 200,000. And in our previous videos where we've been talking about sort of the longer term analysis, where we're talking about possibly lower 6,000s, maybe mid 5,000s. It fits into that whole narrative, right? But as of right now, I think staying above $200,000 market cap is definitely a healthy sign for the time being, and everything that we're seeing, considering the price action, the dip, the correction, the bounce. It seems like we're steadily above the 220 marker, which again is a sort of a fitting sign for what we're seeing here currently. Now going forward, I do think eventually we'll come back and retest $200,000 market cap, and that would mean that Bitcoin would actually also drop in price from the $8,000 market, which we are seeing currently. All right, so just some thoughts before we get into it here. I do want to sort of recommend that you guys watch this video here from Ran Nooner over at Crypto Trader on CNBC Africa. If you guys follow crypto Twitter, he's definitely a person of influence. He's with at CNBC, so he's got a huge platform, and he's a huge promoter of the space. He's had people in there like Peter Schiff, the whole debate between Peter Schiff, the gold man, and Mr. Pump, Anthony Pompliano. He does put out some really great content, and he did go to DEF CON 5 recently, held in Japan, and he did some really good interviews with a lot of the core developers, the community, and just getting an overall sentiment of what DEF CON was like in Japan here recently. So I am going to make a recommendation that you guys go in there and watch the video. It's on my Twitter handle at the Real Shot 256 on Twitter. So go there and just spend a few minutes watching that. I think you're going to find that, like I did, maybe find that Ethereum is very much alive, and there's a huge amount of support, a lot of brains behind Ethereum still pushing for that Ethereum 2.0 project that's going to bring sharding and scalability and a whole slew of other things. So I do recommend again that you watch that. Maybe have a conversation around whether you guys believe that ETH is another shitcoin, or you think it's going to die just like many other altcoins, or maybe you believe that it will actually survive and solve the scalability problem and turn into something great. Either way, let me know down in the comments. We can definitely discuss. I am of the opinion that I do think ETH is not necessarily completely dependent of whether they can pull off Ethereum 2.0 or not. I do think it's a great idea, and it does have plenty of developing to do. But ultimately, again, this is the platform that brought us smart contracts and dApps, right? So definitely something that I think is going to be hard to kill. All right, so let's get into the Mark Zuckerberg speech. I don't want to. I'm not going to play the video, but I'll leave the link here down below in the description of the video. But Mark Zuckerberg appeared in a private AMA video, and although he didn't speak of cryptocurrency or mainly Libra coin, he did speak about the dangers of censorship and how we could inevitably end up like the Chinese and their version of the internet, which is based on censorship. So although he didn't specifically talk about cryptocurrency, he did speak to what cryptocurrency brings, which is freedom and liberty and the opportunity to really own something outright, where which is very contrasting to what we are used to deal with in society, where you have a bank account and you keep your money in there, and then you are also subject to, basically you don't own your own money, right? You are subject to levies, you're subject to the bank seizing your account for whatever reason. So you don't want to put that money in there. A lot of people don't think about this, but you don't really own that asset once you put it in the bank. It's like when back in the days where there was a huge crisis, and people back in 1910, I believe, found out about there may not be the amount of gold that the bank says there is in their repositories. So people started going to the banks and trying to withdraw their wealth, and surprisingly enough, they found out that they didn't. The bank was actually not holding all of those assets. They were keeping notes, but not the hard asset itself. So people were subject to those sort of things, right? And also with home ownership, right? In the United States, and for, I believe it's all 50 states in the United States. If you think you own your home, you actually don't, because the government can actually come in and seize your property, even though you have paid off the mortgage or maybe you don't owe anything. They can still come in and seize your property, right? So Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, as long as you hold your keys, is really the only asset that really allows you to own your own wealth, own your own value and assets, right? Without your private keys or without holding some cryptocurrency, you are definitely subject to traditional systems where the governments or these institutions can seize your assets. All right, so that is my rant for today. Let's get into the charts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if you did see the video, if you guys agree or not. I'm just a big proponent of anything that can help the space. I do think Mark Zuckerberg enjoys a huge platform to the tune of almost 4 billion people. And so when the man speaks, I do want to listen, because again, he is talking to something that really matters to everyone, I think, in the crypto space, which is liberty and just being a self-sovereign individual, which again, I do believe cryptocurrency and Bitcoin does allow for that, or enables that for any individual. All right, so let's get into what we talked about in the last video, which was, I gave you guys 3 points back in Friday the 11th. If you want to go back and watch that video, I give you 3 points we wanted validation of this formation, right? We were up here or trading somewhere in the middle, and I told you guys that we really want to come back and retest this bottom area support and find a bounce there. And so far, we have actually done that. We've actually tested this bottom area of support within this trend here, so it validates the trend, and it conforms, right? It actually is trading within that, so we got confirmation that we are trading this. So real quick, what we can expect actually from this is, two things. We could come back and retest again, because there is a bit of a gap here between this area of support here and where the price action is and where we actually found the bounce, right? So we could potentially come back and really have a hard test of this of this bottom area of support here, and then have a bounce off of there. But we could ultimately expect, whether we do that first, come back and retest this bottom area of support here, or we actually break up and into and back to test these levels. I do think we're going to gradually, come back up. Whether we break down again and retest, or we're gradually gonna come back and retest this prior area of resistance here, where the 0.5 is coming in here, the Fibonacci 0.5 area once acted as support, now acting as resistance. And again, if we can, we're talking about the more bullish case here, if we can start opening and closing some significant candles within this box here, this blue box area here, around, let's call it 8600, 8650. If we can start closing some significant candles in there, opening and closing there, and we can definitely change our minds and think about what's next, which would be quite possibly this previous area of support, now resistance, coming in at 89,000. But we're still pretty far away from that. We definitely want to talk about the here and now, what we can expect in the shorter term. And again, I do want to see it have a hard, solid test of this bottom area. I mean, it doesn't mean that it has to do it. In my opinion, I do think there was a bit of a gap here, and it got front ran. And these markets being as shallow as they are, I do think that it was easily front ran here, and with not a whole lot of volume too, not a whole lot of volume. This is the 4 hour we're looking at. We are currently looking at, actually, the green exponential in the stochastic RSI did actually breach to the upside here. It did actually get above the 21 exponential here within the RSI. So it's definitely a good sign. It's looking pretty bullish, and it's looking like it wants to come back and retest this area. That's another reason why we think that quite possibly we are going to grind our way up here. Now the 4 hour, again, even though it's a short-term indicator, it is sort of something that usually translates to the higher time frames, right? So we definitely want to start paying attention at these levels. If we go and look at the 1 hour, is actually finding support around the 21 here, and actually having a nice bounce on the RSI here within the 21 EMA here. Let's see, a little bit of divergence here, actually quite a bit. Could actually play out. Nah, actually didn't. I don't think we're going to see anything. Again, this is the 1 hour, so I don't think we're going to see anything drastic within here. We are finding again a bounce within the 21 EMA here in the RSI, and I do think, again, it's in conjunction or in confluence with what the 4 hour is saying. The 2 hour is telling us it's looking kind of tired and a rejection off the bullish control zone here. So again, I mean, the 2 hour is telling us that we could potentially, it's looking kind of weak. We could potentially come back and head downward a little bit more before actually starting to grind definitely upwards and into a retest of this top area of resistance, this blue box up here. Looking at the 3 hour. 3 hours in confluence with the 4 hour, actually breaking, but then sort of flattening out here and sort of indecision, which in the market conditions that we are currently in, I do believe that we could actually weaken a little bit, and again, this is what leads me to believe that we might actually come back and retest this bottom area of support here. If we break this previous low pivot here, then definitely we could absolutely come back and revisit this, 7850, and could actually wick down below, right, to about 7600. 7,600 to within 76 to 7,700. Right. If again we break this previous pivot here, that is definitely something that would pop in our radar. So again, that's what the 3 hour is saying. Let's go back to the 4 hour. Yeah, 4 hour is trying to really break out above the 21 here. We'll see what it does in the next couple hours. We did just get a new 4 hour and a new daily about an hour and 24 minutes ago. Our next 4 hour candle will close at 9 p.m. Pacific. That'll be about what is that, midnight in the East Coast. So once we get that 4 hour, we should start to see really what we're going to be headed. If we're going to be headed down or actually continue sideways and maybe potentially, find and grind ourselves back up to higher levels. As I was saying, we did just get a daily close of a new daily close. So let's take a look and see what the daily is telling us. It is telling us that there's definitely more room to the downside, although it's starting to curve down here. So, if Bitcoin does decide to actually continue upwards, we could see this actually bottoming out here and coming back to find resistance where the 21 EMA within the RSI here is coming in. And if we do break above it, again, this is the daily, so I would hold plenty of weight on this and potentially find continuation again to test this area here. But we haven't found confluence on the daily yet with the lower time frame, so we're not ready to quite say that. I'm just kind of preparing myself mentally for what could happen in the next 24 hours, right? But again, the 4 hour will tell us something. The next 4 hour around in the next 2.5 hours should definitely tell us a little bit more information as to whether we are going to turn around here and continue upwards, or actually come back and retest some previous lows around 78 to 7,700. All right, so that's kind of where things are at. Let's actually talk about where these EMAs are coming in at. Let's actually bring them in. Where are my EMAs? There we go. All right, so daily is definitely still within a very, very bearish posture. The first thing in order here will be the 30 simple. We're definitely going to have to come back and retest that. Now, that usually is easy to break above, right? This is the 30 simple is something that we usually break above, break below with certainty and not a whole lot of resistance or impediment. So if we do break down from the 30 on the first test here from this dip, then we could certainly say that we're not ready to come back and retest this top area of support. On the contrary, though, if we do break above it and start closing some significant candles right around 82.60, 82.50, then that would mean again Bitcoin would probably find some support there and come back and retest the 21 EMA here coming in here right above the 30 simple. That one is the 21 is coming in at 83.80. So again, it will be the next area of interest. And again, as we find support and buying power there, again, that gradual upward trend to about 8,500 and call it 70. That'll be our next target, where if you enter down here, which I hope you did, right where the 377 was coming in at, just textbook stuff, right? We did find on the daily having support on the 377 and have a nice an okay bounce. Actually, let's put a measurement on it. So far we've seen, what is this? We've seen about 2.25% 2.25% bounce. So nice bounce off the 377 there to come back and quite possibly retest this 30 simple there around 82.50, 82.60. Let's see, what do we got? All right, let's bring it in a little bit. But again, we're as long as we're within these territory here. We've got the 377 and 30 here. We might end up actually trading within this range here for a little bit before actually breaking back out into these higher levels at again 85.70. That is quite possible. We've actually seen Bitcoin do that in the past. So That is quite possible, which just kind of makes for really a boring and trading environment. There's not a whole lot of action, not a whole lot of volatility. The volatility index was actually sitting pretty low, in the lowest we've seen it in quite a bit of time. So hopefully that will change, because it has definitely lacked in the action side of things. All right. So longer term, medium term of things, on the daily, again, we can definitely expect that, whether this finds a bounce or rejection here, we could definitely say that we're within this trend here again, because we did get validation of it over the weekend and into this week earlier. And now we can definitely say that we are trading within this range here. So feel safe. I would, again, not financial advice, I have to say that, but I feel pretty safe entering here. Personally, if the price drops, I will enter a bigger position here, right around the 377, and around 78.90, 78.80 would also be a good point to have an entry, and then have it most likely continue upward. That's the most likely scenario, right? At this point, is that we are going to come back and retest this previous area of support, because again, these patterns are pretty reliable, right? And look at that, we do have some confluence. We have the 200 EMA coming in there, along where this line of resistance is coming in, and along with this box, and also the 0.5, right? So there's a lot of confluence here. So if we are to break above it, surely, that's why I was saying, if we get to these levels around 86.50, that is a huge indicator that we might actually turn around and actually reach for lower or higher levels here, right? Because again, look at how much confluence is coming in here around this area. That is going to act as huge resistance. So if we do break above it, again, that has to mean something, right? Hopefully you guys agree. If not, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys are thinking, if I'm missing something. Now, these two moves are still they're still pending, right? This yellow line here is a measurement that we took off of this big, huge, macro trend, descending triangle or wedge, however you want to address that. And then this is the measured move, right, which is still in play, coming in at right around a 786. This is longer term. And then we also have this little guy here, which I moved from right over here down or up to this area there, where it's still something that's in play here. We could still have this measured move if we are to break down now, break down below this formation here. This would be the expected move. Again, coming in confluence with the 618, and that would put us at around 72.50 if we are to break down anytime soon. If we are to break out above it again, that's this would be a hugely bullish sign. This is telling us that we would be coming back to retest 9,200, right around 9,200. Now, because of again the current state of the market and where we are and the things that we've seen in the recent past, I do think that this is the more likely scenario. I'm saying it now, and it's a little, it's still a little too early to call it. But again, the trend is downward, right? The trend is telling us that we should find the price of Bitcoin finding some lower lows here for the end of 2019. Again, I do think we should break down from this formation, because it also reminds us of a bear flag as well, right? This is sort of a bearish flag forming here. This pattern here that we're trading within resembles that of a bearish flag. So again, I am leaning towards this actually resolving to the downside. Not financial advice, take it as you will. This is what I'm looking at. This is my opinion only. And again, I would actually look for a move or a breakdown of this formation and come back in the immediate time after that, retest 7,200, the lower 7,000s. But eventually, we've been talking about this lately, is eventually I do think we could potentially come back and retest 5,500, 5,400, right where the 786 is coming in at. Again, these markets are pretty shallow and can be front ran pretty easily. Find support right before it. So I mean, not necessarily meaning, or I'm not necessarily saying that it has to hit 5,400 or 5,500, because it again could potentially get front ran and find a bounce prior to that. But it's not a bad idea to eventually put in a buy order around 5,500. That's all I'm saying. My opinion. Let's look at actually the Bitstamp chart, which kind of talks about the longer time of the longer outlook, right? The long-term scenario. 2019, I think this was definitely the high of 2019. I don't think we're going to come back and see 14,000 again this year. I am saying it now. A lot of you may disagree with me. You can always tell me why you disagree, and give me some reasons, some facts behind what you guys are thinking. But it would be extremely rare that we actually find a retest of this $14,000 range, especially because we've now again, Bitcoin loves to trade within these triangle patterns, right? And we do see that it is following in one as we do see this price action playing out. I mean, we could find that this trend line is coming in from way below, but I just plotted this trend line of support down here as of beginning in 2016, and it has been acting. Prior to that, it has been acting as support, and we do see it clearly here. That it has been acting as reliable support, and thus I do see us coming back down to retest this prior area here, where again the 786 is coming in at what is this? 786 is coming in at 6,600. Again, this is on the Bitstamp chart, and I am using it from pivot low to ultimate pivot high, so that's why the Fibonacci is a little different than what I'm showing you guys here, because I'm actually just using this pivot high to this pivot low. Again, I am tracking a broader range in price. That's why those two look a little bit different, right? But again, the 786 is we are sure to find some sort of support here at the 377 on the daily. Or actually, this is not the 37. This is the 377 where we are currently finding support. But the 10 simple here is actually coming in at around the 786, around 6,600. That is again something that is in confluence with this chart, letting us know that we should find. Where are we? Right here. That again, we should find our way down here to about 5,500 if this measured move from this prior formation actually comes true and does get validated, which I do think it will eventually. Not looking for that to play out anytime soon. Again, I do think, again, going back to 2019, I do think we did see the high for 2019, which was 14,000, 13,900 and something to be exact. I don't think we're going to retest that area. I do think we're going to retest some lower lows. This is the box I've laid out for us here. Longer term, we can move this box along as we move along in price action here, but I do think that eventually we should hit this box. We should definitely hit this box. Now, again, the ultimate bearish case scenario is if we break below this green line of support here that's coming in from way back in the day. Then 3,100, the ultimate low since 2018 would also come into play, and that should act as heavy support there. But if we break down below it, then oh god, that's going to look very detrimental. So be careful when trading. Again, not financial advice, but know what you're getting into. These are the possibilities. If this sort of stuff scares you, then don't trade, don't invest. You're probably better off looking for other options. Just giving you my thoughts and opinions, and because I've lost money in markets, it's a terrible thing, and don't want you guys to go through that. So really pay close attention to what people are saying in regards to the possibility of Bitcoin actually coming down to retest these areas here, and ultimately and potentially what could happen if we do breach this area of support down here, right? So really give it a good thought and do your own research before you invest. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water there. All right, so that is I think it for Bitcoin. Let's actually look at XRP. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, XRP is actually looking very, very bullish. Although it seems to be stuck in the 29. Is this the actual? Is this the updated chart? Yeah. Yep. Is it? Yeah. It's not really moving at this very moment. Seems like there's not a whole lot of trading volume. Or is this? I mean, gosh, this is trading view, right? I mean, what is going on with BTC? Is moving. Yeah, we do see it move. XRP price. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. I just saw the price moving, so was kind of thinking that maybe I lost internet connection or something, but no, we're good. So we're stuck within this 29 cents range, right? It seems like it found heavy resistance here, and in fact, I did that earlier. It found some heavy resistance here within this previous point here, and this previous pivot here, right where it's currently sitting at. So there's definitely heavy resistance here, and it's being stuck within this range here around 28.9 cents. It was as high as, what is this? As high as 30 cents, 30 cents dot 478. That's as high as it got. Looks like earlier today. So I mean, it's definitely looking bullish. Here's what I'm looking for, and I'll give you guys some targets here. If it does break above this area of current resistance here, actually, let's change it to red so you guys can follow in on what I usually do, which is, these red lines represent resistance, these green lines represent support. And, we're currently fighting, XRP is currently fighting a lot of resistance at these ranges. Remember, 29 cents, 30 cents is a huge, huge psychological barrier or psychological support, right? Whether it's on the way up or down, you usually find support or resistance at this level, 29 and 30 cents with XRP. So here's what I think. If we are to break above this current 30 cents, right, with some decision here, some buying power, I think the next area of interest will be right in here at 0.31558. That's a good place to take some profits. And look at that, the 200 EMA is actually coming in influence with that. So definitely a place where you might want to take some initial profits. But then ultimately, and let me actually adjust this. There's a pivot here that should act as resistance on the way up. And this would ultimately be an even better point to start really taking some risk off the table at 33 cents and 33.40 cents. Now, if we get above that, obviously this 377 and the 10 simple here coming in confluence at around, we'll just call it 34 and 34.88. Let's actually put another line in the confluence with this area here. And do we have a previous pivot around to actually? No, we don't. But this is actually going to be a huge area of resistance on the way up too. So here are some targets for you. I'm not saying that we're going to hit them, especially if Bitcoin decides to suddenly have a dump or dip. Then we could potentially see the price of XRP actually break down as well. And now also remind you, we are trading within this upward or this rising wedge here, which again, as bullish as it looks, if we break down from it, I mean, this would ultimately be validated as a bear flag within XRP, within this trend here, would be validated as a bear flag, and then that would mean that we would actually come back and retest 25 cents immediately. But in the here and the now, Bitcoin bouncing and all, I do think that XRP has a real chance at least coming in and retesting the 200 EMA here at around 31.6. Okay. definitely has some more room to go. We could actually come back and retest this 89's EMA here. There's some confluence there too. There's 200 EMA, 200 simple, sorry, 30 simple. The 89 EMA coming in confluence there in this area around, call it 28.6, and then we could potentially have a bounce. I mean, as we've seen it, right? We do see a pivot high, and then we do see a retracement, pivot high, retracement. We haven't actually found an actual a solid retracement here, so that kind of tells me that, this is the pattern again. This is the trend. So following in this trend, I do believe that there could be a retest of the 89 EMA down here at 28.7, right, at the very least. And then we could talk about, hey, coming back to retest at 200. All right. If it does turn around here and just shoot straight up to the 200, then that would, in my opinion, be sort of a break in the pattern. Okay, but that would ultimately be a very, very bullish sign. All right. So that is XRP. I'm sure that the XRP army will be very happy with the analysis today. Let's see. Yeah, the 4 hour is looking. I mean, it retested the bullish control zone here, but then it's finding some indecision here. So again, it kind of leads us to believe that it should be a retest of these. Look at the 4 hours coming in. The 30 simples coming in at 29. The lower 29 end 29.181. And then we have the 55 coming in confluence with the 200 EMA around 28.3. So again, just because we have a retest of these lower prices here doesn't mean that we're actually going to come back and just come back and retest 25 cents. That's just a regular trend. It would be actually very, very natural to come back and retest 28 cents, 27 cents before we breach above this previous area of support where we are currently at 30 cents, and then ultimately head up towards 31 cents, 33.5 cents, and ultimately 34, 35 cents. All right. So let me know down below what you guys are thinking, if you agree with me or not. BNB, let's take a look at BNB is actually doing something very similar to XRP. 4 hours telling us that there's a little bit more room to go here. Hopefully we don't get rejected off of this bullish control zone here within the RSI. We are definitely above the 21. We do see that. Typically in the recent past, every time we do get above the 21 here recently, we actually come back and get into the bullish control zone pretty heavily here. So I do want to see BNB, especially with a continuation of the recent price action. I do think we can definitely have a retest of this area here at 18.95. That will be the very next, area of interest here. Actually, let me tighten it up a bit here, just a tiny bit. There we go. So 19.03. That is going to be key. If we do break above it, then we could definitely say that there could be continuation, especially if Bitcoin still continues to bounce. The 377 is coming in here at right around $20.32. $20 again being a huge psychological price target. We're either going to get heavily rejected off of there, or I know this isn't really telling you much, or we should find plenty of support again at $20 and actually have continuation to the upside. If we do that on the 4 hour, there really isn't a whole lot stopping us from there. So it could actually turn out to be a very, very bullish move. But once the main thing is breaking out of this pivot here, previous pivot, and then evaluating once we get to the 377 here and see what's going on there. If we break above it and start closing and opening and closing some like maybe a daily candle, then yeah, we could definitely talk about continuation to the upside. But again, the current market trend is not that of of an extended bull run here or continuation to the upside. This formation is about 60% full, or close to 60% full. Once we get to about 75 to 80% full, then we do see a decisive move coming in, which again I'm leaning towards the downside. So I would encourage everyone to just be careful and keep keep taking profit. If you're buying the dips and selling on the bounces, keep it relatively safe and conservative. Right now is not the time to get aggressive. Right now is not the time to get ultimately bullish, because again, the current market conditions, the trend that we are in, definitely points that we should find ultimately continuation to lower prices. So again, don't buy on these top areas of resistance. Buy at these bottom areas of support, and then follow the continuation, and then definitely sell or take some profits along the way up. All right, especially if you see it retesting to 0.5 here in the shorter time frames. All right, that is all that I have for you guys tonight. I wanted to get over here and give you guys a quick update. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being here. If you did get something out of this video, please hit the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you do get notified whenever I put out new content. And if you did, and hopefully you did get something out of this video in exchange for your time. And if you did, again, please let me know you did by hitting the subscribe button. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Pleasure talking to you guys. Hope you have a great night.